And I did something with my copy of the...
Agenda should be on your tablet too.
Okay. Jessica, would you call roll, please?
Yes, I will. Committee Member Dukes.
Here.
Committee Member Fernandez. Committee Member Herman.
Here.
Oh, there she is. Committee Member Jacobson.
Present.
Committee Member Morgan. Not yet. And Committee Member Musgrave.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The minutes of the last meeting are at the end of the agenda. Any additions or corrections from anyone? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve them. Anybody? Okay.
I propose a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, yeah, I guess I do. All in favor of accepting the minutes as written, raise your hand. Or say aye. Okay. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're all doing aye and raising hands. Is that good enough? Any opposed? Okay.
We have to hear the aye because the recording is the... Sorry, let me turn my mic on. We have to hear an aye because the recording is the legal copy of the minutes. So if you just raise hands, people can't see that.
Okay.
So that's why we call the aye instead.
Okay, so Zoom lag on the ayes. Always fun.
Aye.
Okay, any public comment on anything that's not on tonight's agenda? Kelly, did you get any requests from public? And we have one member of the public in council chambers. Okay, nothing there. Okay, on to old business. The individual wish list report to go to the mayor. I have not done that, and I apologize because the draft cap came out, and guess how I've been spending my time. It will be done for the next meeting. Second item on old business is the Earth Center letter of recommendation. And Chris, you did a marvelous job on writing a resolution. And Kelly educated me because I helped you with it. We don't do resolutions. We do recommendations to the applicable city department. So it was a lovely resolution and completely pointless. So I'm really sorry. Kelly, I'm going to reiterate to you, please, please help us because we're all new at this and we have not been involved in years and years of dealing with city government protocol. Our hearts are in the right place. Sometimes we need some guidance on how to phrase things. So you were going to check, Kelly, to see if the Earth Center recommendations are still being accepted. Are they?
Yes, they are.
Excellent. So, Chris, could you and I get together and rewrite that as a recommendation? And would it be to the planning department, Kelly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll write a recommendation to the planning department. Hold your breath, Kristen. It's coming your way. And we'll do it. Kelly gave me a great template. And so we'll do it all nice and pretty where they'll have no recourse but to accept it just because it's so gorgeous. Thank you. Okay. New business. And we're delighted to have Kristen, and I'm pleasantly surprised to see Michael Richardson here too. Thank you very much, both of you, for coming. Just for the record, the draft cap was the latest version of the draft cap was released April 7th, and here it is. And a subcommittee was formed since we needed to get some work done before this meeting, with public comment ending so quickly. And that subcommittee consisted of Beth Herman, Lou Jacobson, and me. We had plowed through it and had a brief meeting. And I think before we go over what we came up with, we'd like to do the Q&A with Kristen and Michael, if you don't mind, in case there are obvious changes that need to be made. Is that okay with everybody? I hope that we all have read this draft and made notes of questions and so forth to ask Kristen and Michael. And I just lost my agenda. I apologize. I got real lazy with the Zoom meetings where I could just spread out all over everywhere. And I kind of knew where everything was. Who has questions for Kristen or Michael? Michael is the county CAP coordinator, boss man. What's your title, Michael?
Yeah, thanks. I'm a supervising planner in the long range planning unit there with the county, and we've been taking the lead in kind of organizing the effort with all the cities.
Okay. And Kristen is the City of Eureka point person on this, right? So from our planning department.
Yeah, me and Kristen Getz, who's also on the call tonight.
Okay.
I'll be fielding questions and then asking Michael to respond to them when I need help.
Great. I didn't see Kristen, so I didn't know she was here. Welcome, Kristen Getz. Okay, questions for either Kristen Kenyon, Michael Richardson, or Kristen Getz.
This is Lou. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
And my apologies for not being on video. Zoom is doing a number on my computer right now. So this is for Kristen. I'm going to jump right into Appendix B, the cap measure spreadsheet with the 4/7/22 date stamp. When the City of Eureka looks at the spreadsheet and we look at the very specific goal, strategy, and objective items mapped to the City of Eureka, could you just refresh me on, how is the City of Eureka going to prioritize actions? What is there a metrics that the City of Eureka is looking at to prioritize those actions?
Do you mean prioritizing which strategies to achieve?
Yeah, exactly. So, we live in a finite world. So if you had two good choices and they were both very relevant, how would you select between those two choices within Appendix B?
Yeah, we are thinking, planning staff is thinking that, the regional cap, the draft regional cap does a really good job of laying out the implementation measures and then the metric we need to achieve for each one, but it isn't so detailed on how to get there. They give implementation options, action options for us to select from. So planning staff is feeling like once this plan is adopted, there's a whole nother process of us developing our implementation plan to meet the metrics, where we select the strategies to get there, and how we're going to get there to meet those metrics.
Well, thank you. And maybe a quick follow-up. Could you explain then how column U is looked at from the city's perspective? So column U looks to be the actions that the city is selecting. Is that correct? And then the potential CO2e that could be mitigated by taking that action. Is that correct?
Yeah, so column U. Also, if you go up to the top of the spreadsheet and there's on row 3, jurisdiction, you can change that and you can just, right now it says countywide, you can change that to Eureka, and then it the Eureka numbers pop up in column G. But yeah, so U is the metrics, right? The metrics we've agreed to, or we're seeing if we agree to commit to those, right? I'm struggling with scrolling. Okay. H. Okay, Arcata, Eureka, U. Yeah. So for instance, let's find one. Yeah, so one of the metrics is one electric vehicle purchased, and we're committing to 1,287 vehicles purchased. That's our metric goal for the cap.
For those of you who are not aware of where this is, Appendix B is available only on the website, the county's website. It was not printed. You had to print it out separately if you were into that. Okay, any other follow-up questions, Lou?
Yeah, so is this then community-wide? So when I'm looking at this, I'm not looking at it from a city perspective or a muni perspective. Are you saying then on, let's say the EV purchases, that the city is committing to then support the community in buying those electric vehicles? Because I guess in my mind, the cap and the GHG inventory would be community-wide or municipality, of course, both. So I'm just trying to wrap my mind around, when I hear that metric, should I be looking at that as community-wide, including the municipality, or what the city itself within your own general fund is committing to?
Right. There's certain things in here that the city's committing to municipal actions versus citywide actions, and you have to kind of read the cap. But I believe that one's a citywide, so we're supporting people purchasing the vehicles. I think most of them actually are not, the city's municipal efforts are supporting action and not the actual metric. Maybe Michael can help me out with that.
Yeah, I think with the city's help, we predict that this many cars will be electrified.
Got you. And is there any reconciliation then? And I've looked for this, and I apologize if it was a snake and it would bite me. But is there any place that reconciles Appendix B to the actual narrative? Like, so if I wanted to know, like, okay, what are the details in this very specific action? Would I then go to like section 3.2.1 within the cap to sync it to section or strategy 3.2 in the spreadsheet?
Michael, can you field that one?
Yeah, I can respond to that. We are trying to cross-correlate the measures that are listed in the climate action plan with those that are in the spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet takes it a step further by identifying the way that we get to the metric tons of carbon reduction as a result of specific measures. And so you'll see the correlation in the CAP document itself Well, it identifies a specific number of units of, for instance, vehicles that will become electric. And then in the spreadsheet, you'll see that same number reflected. And then you can use the spreadsheet to track how we determine the number of metric tons of carbon reduction that will result.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions from anyone? Okay, I have some. First of all, I'm a little less in the weeds. My questions are more general. The first one is, could you review the timeline for the cap? I know public comment ends the first week in June, and the whole thing is going to be adopted by August of 2023. Is that correct?
So, oh, yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the environmental document will be completed by August of 2023, and at that time, we would expect to begin the final phase of the program, which would be adoption of the cap by the individual jurisdictions.
And is there any kind of a thought as to when that might happen and when the final cap would be in place, implemented in each jurisdiction?
Yeah, our hope is that in the latter part of 2023, after the environmental review is completed, that it would be somewhat of a short haul to get to adoption by all of the jurisdictions.
In the meantime, what happens between now when excuse me, when we have to get a recommendation to the city planners this week? Public comment ends the first part of June. What happens then?
Well, the idea with releasing this preliminary draft is to assess whether or not it's ready for being studied in the environmental document, in the EIR. And so the comments that we receive from now until the environmental review process begins would hopefully be somewhat high level, where we would be identifying fatal flaws in the project, if there are any, that would need to be fixed before it's ready for review in the environmental document.
Okay, and the more minor, I hate to say minor, the non-fatal flaws would be addressed during the EIR process?
Yeah, that's right. There's going to be an extensive public engagement component to the EIR process, and we're anticipating getting a lot of varied concerns, and really we're going to need a lot of time to sort through all of those comments and reconcile them. And I think the EIR process lends itself well to give us that time to deliberate and to come up with the best strategy for moving forward.
Thank you. Can you speak to why the 2012 cap was not adopted? What happened and what's different about this one that makes you think this one's going to go forward?
Yeah, the 2012 one wasn't adopted for a couple of reasons. One is because the inventory protocol that was used, they shifted horses midstream on us, and so it became outdated between when we started and when it was potentially ready for adoption by the board. And so they didn't have confidence in the numbers, first of all, and then secondly, they had some concerns about some of its programs. It was developed in-house by a good planner for sure, but an individual can only pull so much together, and so there were a number of things that were suggested in that cap that really turned off our Board of Supervisors, and they didn't want anything to do with it, frankly, at that point. And so we pulled it back and started on this new path of taking a more collective regional approach.
Considering that at the earliest, apparently, it's going to be the end of next year before this begins to be implemented, are we in danger of having the inventory or other numbers change in the interim, considering how long it's already been in process?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is something that is a concern moving forward as well. At what point do you update the information, the baseline information that you're using to justify your implementation programs? And RCEA has thankfully begun the work to update the inventory to reflect the 2020 conditions. I just learned some sad news that their lead person on that, bailed on them. Maybe that's too strong of a word, but she moved on, and so they're struggling to complete that 2020 inventory, but they're working on it. That's a priority for them, and so we will have, certainly before the environmental document is completed, we'll have some new information to use to kind of regulate, it's not the right word, but to calibrate the measures that we've got to current conditions.
Thank you. When will the rest of the appendices be released?
That's a great question too. I've got, I was working on the implementation funding matrix. That's the biggest lift for me, and it's almost there. I expect it will be done tomorrow, and then I think we'll get them on our website by the end of the week.
All of them? All the remaining ones?
Yeah, I've been saying that for a week and a half now, so take it with a grain of salt, but I am committed to getting this thing, moving this forward so I can move on to
Michael, it's just 2 appendixes that are missing right now, right?
Right.
Yeah, right.
The consistency checklist for CEQA and the funding implementation matrix.
Okay.
Yeah, and the only reason for the delay is it's just a perfunctory task where we revised the ordering of the measures in the spreadsheet Appendix B, and I didn't know that that ordering was reflected in these other appendices. I was just blissfully ignorant of that fact when I launched, and so I'm just trying to catch up.
Sometimes blissful ignorance is ideal. I'm curious about why the transportation-related targets don't align with the HCOG Regional Transportation Plan.
Yeah, they do. They are so fast. I think that's the simple answer is they revise their transportation documents. They have a schedule every 3 years for the transportation plan, I think. And what you're seeing reflected is the previous version, and the new version is more aggressive and needs to be incorporated into these targets. There's no reason why it can't be, and it really should be.
Yay, that was the right answer. Thank you.
Sure.
And Kristen, this probably is more for you. Who would be in charge of carrying this forward for the city of Eureka?
We haven't identified who our point person is yet. We're talking as a regional CAP group about the potential of hiring somebody who works on the regional CAP, and that's their job.
By hiring somebody, you mean for the city of Eureka, or that one super person who is going to carry the entire CAP for the entire region?
Right, the one point person. So we would also need somebody at the city who is a lead on the project, but that person hasn't been identified.
Okay.
And could we clarify lead real quickly? Is that lead on making sure that compliance is maintained, or lead on actually implementing?
Yeah, I think those are one and the same thing, right? Because we have to track our implementation to maintain our compliance. So they would be in charge of helping the regional point person, getting them our info. And if we end up adopting an implementation plan to implement the CAP in Eureka to achieve our metrics, then that person would be in charge of tracking that.
Okay, are there any other questions from any of the committee members for either Kristen or Michael?
I have one more, but I want to make sure other people have space.
Beth, Chris?
Just wanted to throw out there, we have, happening in June, probably till November, like a fairly significant election regarding sort of the balance of power in the Board of Supervisors, and especially concerning environmental issues, without diving too much into the details there. But has that worked too much into like what the plans are going to be? Like, this is what we do if X person is in, this is what we do if Y person's in? Do you think it's going to be the same either way?
Is that a question for the county or the city?
I guess, well, I don't know.
That sounds like for the county.
Yes, that's kind of where I assume the conversation would be, but,
Yeah, I'll say that our Board of Supervisors has been pretty steadfast in their support of the CAP, and I don't see that changing with the new election, regardless of who gets elected.
Okay, glad to hear that.
And from the city, it's a big part of our strategic vision currently, and they keep asking about it, so they're really excited about moving forward with the CAP, and I'm hoping that doesn't change.
No pressure, but get it out now. Am I correct that the state of California is mandating that every local jurisdiction have some kind of means of lowering their measuring and lowering their greenhouse gas emissions, and it can be done either by way of their general plan or by way of a CAP? Is that an accurate interpretation of what the state is saying?
I could maybe jump in. As far as I can tell, the state is in a mode of saying, it's kind of a carrot approach, where they're saying if you want to take advantage of these streamlined measures for environmental purposes, environmental review purposes, then you need to have a cap. And whatever project that you approve needs to be evaluated against the cap. And if it's consistent with the cap, then you're good to go in terms of your greenhouse gas emissions. If you don't have that cap, then you're going to have to do, with all of your discretionary approvals, you're going to have to do environmental review of that. And that's going to include an assessment of the emissions that are going to be produced by this new use that you're contemplating. And that is putting you on on shaky ground. Frankly, legally, CEQA is the easiest target for people to hit if they want to stop a project. And so it's more of a carrot approach than a stick at this point.
And am I correct that there are financial incentives also for a cap?
Yeah, and I would say there's
funding sources.
There are, and particularly, I would say for a regional cap. For instance, this environmental review is being funded because it is a regional cap, as opposed to each of us just going alone.
Thank you. Louis, you had another question.
Yeah, this is for the city staff. So I know the city is taking a lot of action. I want to put that disclaimer out before I say what I'm going to say. What barriers are preventing the city and the city staff from taking action on some of these measures that are, fundamentally just make sense today, opposed to waiting until the cap is approved?
Nothing's stopping us. And we get credit because the emissions inventory in the cap is from 2015. So when we do as we do emissions inventories, it's going to track progress from 2015. And so anything we've done since then, we'll see the results in our tracking of the plan. So there's nothing stopping us from getting started now on any of these things. And I know the city council, for instance, is already interested in hearing about REACH programs for, going all electric for new construction and existing buildings. So I think we should move forward because some of the goals are, some of the metrics are quite large, so we need to start now to achieve them.
Has city staff identified, you just said REACH codes, right? All electric new construction as a starting point. Are there other areas that city staff have identified as logical places to begin today or soon?
Stuff just constantly comes up. Like the city council was talking about e-scooters last month, and that would implement the e-bikes, e-scooters measure of the cap. So we haven't strategically thought about this and how we want to implement the metrics, but a lot of this stuff keeps coming up already in our conversations about things we're doing at the city. So yeah, no, we haven't strategized and prioritized yet, but things are coming up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions before I let Kristen and Michael go have dinner? We deeply appreciate both of you, and Kristen Getz. Sorry, I never saw you, but I'm assuming you're there too. So we deeply appreciate both Kristens and Michael for taking time to help us understand this. We are trying hard to plow through it, and we're 100% behind you in getting this thing done. So thank you very, very much for coming. And you're welcome to stay if you'd like, but you're also free to go if you'd like.
Okay. Well, wonderful. It's been great talking to you, and I really appreciate your support.
Thanks.
It's great having Kristen on our team. They are stalwarts in pushing this thing forward. So thank you for supporting them.
Thank you, Michael. There are 7 cities he's attending meetings of this month.
Oh, gee.
So really appreciate you to Energy Committee. That was really
No rest for the wicked, huh?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, Kelly, could you put up the sample recommendation that the subcommittee came up with about accepting the cap?
Sure.
Thank you. I should tell you that Beth was out of town, so Lou and I kind of came up with this on our own. And after hearing some of what Michael and Kristen Kenyon were talking about, I already have a couple of changes I would like to make. Can you make it larger, please? Thank you. I will tell you that Kelly took this and put it on a lovely letterhead in a format that looks very official.
Oh.
So
Yes, I could pull that one up too.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
looking at the
Okay.
at the content rather than how pretty it is.
Yes.
I'm just letting them know that you did a beautiful job. Thank you. So, can everyone read that? Is there anyone who cannot read it? And you're going to have to speak because I can't see your faces anymore. Okay. So we, essentially Lou and I, because Beth was gone, felt that we should strongly recommend that the planning department advise city council to approve the draft climate action plan as written right now. In other words, we didn't see any fatal flaws, as Michael Richardson put it. And the reasons include the state of California requires local governments to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions in their jurisdictions, and a cap is a widely accepted means of accomplishing this. The state of California has incentives for adoption of climate action plans by local jurisdictions. The city of Eureka is behind many other California locales in its climate crisis preparedness and actions. Adoption of a qualified cap will streamline local builders and developers' CEQA greenhouse gas emissions review process. That's what Michael was just referring to. A bunch of climate scientists, IPCC and others, are increasingly insistent that though we have already locked in some level of irreversible climate change, the sooner we act, the more we can avoid or mitigate even worse consequences. And that goes back to what Kristen Kenyon was just talking about. Yeah, we should start now. We don't need to wait for the cap. The cap has been in development for years, and we cannot afford to spend more time aiming for perfection rather than getting started on the already ambitious goals of the draft cap as written. That's a little inaccurate. What we're suggesting, and I'm going to rewrite this based on what we decide tonight because it has to be to Kelly tomorrow. But what we're trying to do is move this forward into the EIR process rather than hanging it up for more nitpicking about what Michael called the non-fatal flaws. And then prompt approval of the draft cap will lead to a full environmental impact review, the next step in getting to a final regional cap for Humboldt County. And as Michael and Kristen both mentioned, the EIR process is when a lot of the more nitpicking kind of suggestions come up. So what we're saying now is we don't see any fatal flaws in the draft cap, and we want to send it on and recommend that the council approve it so that it can go on into the EIR process. And then additionally, the Energy Committee recommends that the Planning Department advise Council to take immediate additional steps in preparation for implementing the eventual cap. Specifically, and this was the kind of the be-all, end-all, and again, Kristen kind of referred to it. Hire a director of sustainability and energy, or whatever you want to call the person. And as a note, offices of sustainability are common in jurisdictions outside of Humboldt County. And the second one, as I read farther into the cap, it no longer applies. There was a mention of reviewing it every 5 years, but it's not just every 5 years. It is ongoing monitoring and reevaluation with a final formal reevaluation every 5 years, but provisions made for changing things as they are identified. And then the third and fourth one are perhaps more specific than we need right now. Empower staff to lead by example, so that approval can be done at 3 different levels, and direct staff to use all procurement and financing tools available to streamline and accelerate energy and sustainability related actions as itemized in Appendix B. I think after having heard Michael and Kristen, perhaps those two, or at least the last one, might not be appropriate at this point. I definitely think the second one is not appropriate at this point. So, can we get people's faces up and keep that on the screen also, Kelly? Can we put the people at the top or the side or something so I can see them?
Looking, but
okay, well, you're going to have to use your words then, guys.
Or I can stop screen sharing.
Well, I want to make sure that that's there if people need to refer to it. Are there questions about this?
Anybody? Deborah, I have a
yes.
question.
Thank you for using your words. I can't see anybody, so I don't know. Go ahead, Lou.
After listening to the city staff, do we want to add something in here that encourages a stopgap implementation plan before the adoption of the cap?
Yeah, a later iteration of this, I kept working on it. Under hire a director of sustainability and energy, I put something to the effect of so that person, and do it immediately, so that person can start implementing sustainability measures now rather than waiting for the cap. And when the cap is finally adopted, that person and their staff would be up and running. Does that sound appropriate?
So I guess where I was thinking, so yes, that's whether or not that happens or not, right? So the very first thing, I guess, in my mind, and Kelly, I don't know if you can, opine on this, is to make the recommendation that city staff, review and come up with like metrics for success, right? So the first step is just saying, okay, what do we even want to do, right? If there are no metrics driving the decision-making process, maybe hiring somebody to do it is the first step. Maybe coming up with, key performance metrics to identify what actions are the priority is the first step. So I don't want to necessarily guess, but rather make the recommendation that city staff should consider, beginning that planning process well in advance of the formal adoption of the cap. And then, yes, I do think a staffer needs to be hired. So maybe it's a A-B to that.
If we agree on that as an entire committee, I can add that.
Agreed.
Beth, do you have comments?
Oh, yeah, but sorry, I was saying agreed.
Oh, okay. Any comments about the rest of this? Chris?
He's giving you the thumbs up, Deborah.
Yeah.
He's good.
Okay, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't see you.
Oh, you can. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. No, I agree with the recommendations.
Okay. So after listening to Kristen and Michael, is it okay with everyone if I eliminate under the additional ones there, numbers 2 and 3? Incorporate, I'm thinking maybe just incorporate number 4 into number 1 along with, what do you think, Lou?
So I guess I'm fine with number 2 leaving, but taking number 3 out worries me, right? Because if we're saying, hey, we want to hire somebody to do this, or hey, we want staff to formally begin planning for this, a big part of that is streamlining decision making, right? So part of that plan would be taking it to council, and the council would say, if you met these very specific metrics, whatever they are, staff, you don't have to come and ask us permission for every single action, right? So if staff wants to move forward with an energy commission loan because it makes sense, it saves the city money, and it's reducing greenhouse gas emissions, is there a mechanism that council can just say, if it meets these very specific criteria, just do it? So that's where I see number 3. I'm hesitant to be okay with personally saying let's get rid of number 3, because that was the intent of it, of saying we need to make sure that staff can just take action without having to be burdened by a 2, 3, 5 month, 7 month decision making process. Same thing with number 4. If there's a streamlined procurement process, let's say Government Code 4217, then staff needs to be empowered to feel comfortable using it.
What about incorporating all of those into essentially hiring a director of sustainability, starting immediately with doing everything we can do, using 3 and 4 as sort of sub-paragraphs under that? Because all of this has to do with, let's do it now. We don't need to wait for the cap, right?
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. The only point I would say is if you hire somebody, if you don't hire somebody and you don't say these are other really important steps, then you may not be, getting the biggest bang for the buck, right? So if you hire somebody and you get everything else outstanding, but if you can't hire somebody and you take away these other mechanisms, are you still setting existing staff up for taking action as quickly as we should be taking action?
Good point. So I keep messing with my agenda, sorry. So hire a director of sustainability and energy immediately. Establish or direct staff to begin implementing sustainable and energy saving procedures right now. Establish metrics, empower staff to lead by example, direct staff to use all procurement and financing tools available. Is that roughly what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Other comments? Anything about the reasons for our recommendation? Anything on that stood out to anybody as inaccurate or inappropriate or otherwise shouldn't be in there? Kelly, could you move it up a little bit so that they can see the first 7 items? There. Thank you. Do those meet?
That section seems pretty strong to me. Like it seems all like true, not even really contestable, and good reasons.
Oh, there are always people who are going to contest it.
Oh well.
Do those items meet with everyone else's approval? Beth, Lou?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess at this point, I will entertain a motion to submit this sort of a cleaned up version of this to the planning department via Kelly tomorrow.
I would motion that Chair Dukes do that.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, I will get a copy of this to, sorry, all in favor, say aye. Verbally? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. I will get a copy of this to each of you through Kelly before it goes to the planning department, just to make sure that everything is as we agreed. Okay. If you have not yet delved into the CAP, I strongly encourage you to do it. There's a lot of stuff in there. Specifically, Section 4 has the strategies that they're suggesting. Okay, subcommittee updates. Reach codes. Beth and Blue.
I think we're ready to go, from my perspective, to work on getting a recommendation to the committee next month, particularly now that we see what's in the CAP and heard from the city that they want to move on it. So I think it's reasonable to have a recommendation by next month.
I think that's true too.
Yay.
I agree. Sorry, I have laryngitis, so I'm not.
Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, that's great. We'll look forward to that next month. May I suggest that anything in writing be sent to Kelly for distribution to all of us so that we have a chance to at least have a hard copy in front of us for the next meeting? Is that something that you could do?
Yes.
And I apologize for not doing it with this. We were going to have a meeting at noon today and didn't, so it waited until too long or too late. The Sustainable Steps flyer, I talked with Nancy Stevenson, and she's still working on it. Energy use survey. Chris?
Oh yeah, yes. So, did talk it over with Eddie just before meeting here. So he has a version that looks pretty clean, pretty usable. I believe we'll be taking it to the city to get it up on the city website. I believe was the plan. Wanted to do sort of a like month by month release of the questions, which I think is kind of a good idea. I don't think you want to necessarily have somebody sitting there for 30 questions in front of them. Better to get like a couple at a time. I don't know. It seems like the right move to me anyway. That's I wish Eddie was here with the actual doc, but no, it looked pretty good. I think I hope we can move it forward. Do you think do you want that to does the folks want to see the questionnaire questions themselves, or do you think we have the committee's approval to submit them to Kelly?
It would have been nice to have seen the final product, but we've seen several versions so far and have approved several versions. So unless Kelly tells me that there's some reason we can't just going ahead with it, my inclination would be to say, let's get it out.
Also, maybe Kelly can just, when you guys send it to her, Kelly could send us a copy of it just so we can see it. But I agree. I think there's no reason we can't just move forward.
Does that sound okay, Kelly? Is there any reason that we have to vote on this or anything?
No, I thought we were already there.
Okay, that's what I thought too.
To put it on the website and release it to the public. So,
great.
Chris, along with that is the write-up explaining what it is.
Okay.
And we should be good.
And I would be happy to go through the whole CAP subcommittee report again if anybody's interested or not. Infrastructure and resiliency. Beth, Lou, and Chris.
Chris, do you want me to give a quick update?
Yeah.
All right. So no change from last month. We, made our verbal report out, and so really it's up to the committee on where to go with that. Whether or not we want to have a, formal write-up that we can hand staff saying, "Hey, you all are doing a great job on this. Keep it up," or let it be for now.
If you're interested in an opinion, I'm a big believer in spreading praise wherever it's due. So anytime you can say good job, let's say it.
All right. Well, we'll write up a report and we'll commend staff for a good job done.
I think that's a good idea. Thank you. And then the Planning Commission requested guidance on cannabis-related energy usage. And at the time that I was asked about this, they seem to be kind of floundering. Lou and Chris, have you been able to come up with any guidelines on that, or find out what the city's baseline is, if there is any guidance for grow operations in the city limits?
Sure. And Chris, I can give the update on the research I did. So Chris and I did not meet, but I did get information. So California Title 24 code will be adopted by, I believe, the California Energy Commission by mid-year. Kelly knows probably the exact date. And then the city has to adopt it and begin implementing it. My understanding is the beginning of next calendar year, or roughly in that timeline. And the current code for indoor horticultural production includes measures for cannabis, horticulture growing. It's very, very technical.
Excuse me, Lou. Is this all horticulture or just cannabis?
I mean, they're calling it horticulture, but it's indoor growing. It's
okay.
Light growing.
Okay.
So they're not going to come out there, I think, in code and say, "Hey, if you're growing weed, you're going to meet these specifications." Right?
My tomatoes are safe.
But it's commercial, right?
Right,
so
right,
residential,
right. Yeah.
Non-permitted stuff. I'm not going to speak to, but basically, there's what looks like pretty robust energy code in the pipeline. And so the real question, and Chris and I need to work on this, is meeting with professionals in the industry and saying, is this reasonable, right? If we went farther than this, would this have a negative impact on your production? So at first glance, it looks like some of our other code conversations, which is like, it's about to become California Energy Code. Do we really want to put something in place right before this becomes code? Or do we want to let code do its job and pull up and research it down the road? So I think that's really where I landed. I tend to default to code and say, look, if the Energy Commission is bringing code in to address this problem, let's not take on a duplicative effort unless there's something more to be done there. And it's so technical that I think it could be very dangerous to make recommendations without really bringing in, some seasoned experts.
May I make a suggestion, since they asked us specifically for guidance, that the two of you do a short report for the Planning Commission. They're volunteers just like we are. And tell them what you found in your research and why you're suggesting at this point that we wait, or they wait, whatever, for the new code to come out. I would like to respond to their request in some way.
Sure.
Can one of you do that?
Sure.
Okay. I'm not sure who said sure. Was that you, Chris?
Blue.
Chris, you okay? Okay, I couldn't tell who was saying sure. I knew it wasn't Beth, but I couldn't tell which of the men it was. Sorry. Okay.
Well, Deborah, it's really easy, right? Because it's going to be one paragraph, which is
Right.
Title 24, Section 6 is going to be handling this. Let's wait to July to see if this is adopted.
Yeah. No,
If not, we'll pull up.
I agree. I just want to respond since they specifically asked us.
And my response was sure.
Okay.
We'll get it done.
That was what I was asking. I wasn't sure who was saying sure. I apologize.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, they have a meeting on Monday, Jessica just said. So it's going to have to be done pretty quickly. Okay?
Next Monday.
Yeah, next Monday, a week from today. But it will have to go through Kelly to get to the Planning Commission.
They submit their agenda on Friday.
Okay. Okay.
So and
Jessica
Deborah,
just.
do we need the whole?
I'm sorry?
Do we need a whole committee
No.
to take action for me to be able to write them?
No, I don't think so. Do we, Kelly? Just write a paragraph.
We're not voting to do anything. So
Yeah, we're not doing anything.
It's just communications between two groups, so you should be fine.
We're just trying to be nice and respond to their request. Okay. Any other?
Honestly, you can just send me an email.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't have to be an engraved stationary thing. Okay. Any other business tonight? Okay. I'd like to remind all of us to get items for the agenda for next month to Kelly sooner rather than later. And do you want one item I have already, Kelly?
I would ask that you send it via email. Like
Will
you
do.
described.
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. If there's no other business, we'll adjourn until Monday, June 6th at 5 o'clock. Thank you very much, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, let's get out of here.